Hi everybody, welcome back. It's been a while, but I am here to give a lesson on composition, which is one of the most important aspects of photography. We've done a couple of other tutorial videos, and this one on composition I think will help you to be more mindful when you do photos of your own children and your own family on how you compose your image. So let's get started. Composition is how the elements in the photo are arranged. One of the most important things to learn in composition is symmetry. Here you are going to want to focus on a central focal point with both sides of the image balanced or mirroring each other. It's important to know what symmetry is so that you will have a really balanced and pleasing composition. And once you learn these rules, you can easily break them at a later date, but it's important to understand what they do so that you turn your snapshots into beautiful works of art. So in this photo, which I think you've seen a few times before, at least I've showcased it before in a couple of my other videos and in my general work. This is my little boy Victor, and I had him lay in a field of grass and clover on his back. It was an overcast day with very even light. So back to the lighting video, we discussed this type of lighting. It's overcast, it's very diffused, it's soft on his face, and his elbows are placed back in a very balanced, symmetrical position behind his head. And he just has kind of a serene look on his face. This is a very symmetrical, centrally focused image. And this is a great thing to do if you are a beginner, to try a pose like this for your kids, or if they're outside playing and they've fallen relaxed into the grass. It's a great idea to capture one of these, because this is one of the quintessential images of childhood when I think of childhood. And so I converted this image to black and white to get that childhood feel of nostalgia and whimsy. I think that his expression is very much about childhood and innocence. So this is a good type of image to give a try if you are starting out. Another thing to be mindful of is the rule of thirds. If you could imagine that each photo that you take is an invisible grid and it has 9 intersecting blocks. If you place your image on either the left side, the right side, or the center of the block, with it symmetrical if it's in the center of the block, you are generally following the rule of thirds. In the image on the left side, my little boy, Victor again, is feeding some goats at a friend of ours' barn, and all of the lines in this image kind of lead back to this area where the image is focused on his face, which has reflected light on it, and it's dark all around, and then light where I wanted the emphasis to be. So this is one of my favorite images. I loved the use of texture and the light and the contrast, and the rule of thirds applies strongly here because he's placed in the left-hand corner of the image. The image of the right, on the right, is a very typical style that I do when I do portraiture, and it's where the center of the face is in the center block, and there will be usually the whole head is in the picture, and then the mid-central block has the image. A lot of times I'll put the eyes on the top line going across. Just if there was an invisible line going through that image, I would line the eyes up in that position because it's a very strong traditional composition, and it's very simple, and it gives a lot of emphasis on the beauty of the face. And it's just very pleasing, and it's one of my favorite ways to do photos. So that's the rule of thirds. Another way you could try to take some images is by framing your subject. If you have an archway or trees or some object that can frame the subject, a lot of times it adds depth and visual interest. Here we were in a Christmas tree farm, and my little boy was looking at some of the trees, and he went in and hid. We had, again, an overcast day. He went in and hid, and I saw that you could see the branches through, see him through the branches. So I pulled them back just a bit, and then I took this image, and it's one of my favorite Christmas time images of him. I just love how he's looking straight at me, and how the red and the green, which are complementary colors, are very rich. And you can see his face is surrounded by these Christmas trees, these evergreen trees. Another thing to be mindful of are leading lines. This is where you'll have a line or two lines or several lines leading you through to the subject to draw you in and add interest. So this is a great thing to use. This was one of my friend's children, Genevieve. She was on a playground, and she just happened to look over at me while I was photographing her. I was having her go across these, and she just happened to look over at me, and that was the expression on her face. And this, to me, really typifies childhood and play, and I just really love this image. Some tips for success that I could give you are when you're composing your images, you want to be mindful of cropping at the joints. This is the wrists or the fingers, the knees, the ankles. There are other crop points that you can crop your image, but if you get it right in the camera when you're composing your image, it makes your life a lot easier in post-processing. When you're editing the image, or even if you don't edit the image at all and you just keep it as is from the camera, if you get it right with the cropping in the camera when you're taking the image, and you could move just a little to the left or the right or recompose your image, this makes a really big difference in how images look. Especially with cell phone photos, the wide angle lens is great for landscapes, but you really have to be aware of cell phone distortion if you're doing portraits. This was taken with my professional camera. There are some images that I've shared of my little baby Oliver where he's laying on his back. And I always make sure to tip the phone slightly to correct the distortion. Usually you can tip it forward or backward and just take a look at what it looks like before you snap that photo, because you can easily correct the distortion and more accurately capture the subject and take a more flattering photo. Some more tips: you will want to practice, practice, practice. I have been doing photography for almost 20 years. Now, many of those years I was just a hobbyist learning, just like you, and having a lot of fun with it. After I had my kids, I more seriously started to take a look at photography that I had started pretty young in college to do wedding photography, and I took a look back on that and said, you know, I really love taking these photos of my children, and I think other people would appreciate the service that I'm able to offer them too. So that's how I started to do professional photography. It's important to ask questions. This is your journey, and you want to avoid comparisons. You never know how long your favorite photographer took to learn those skills, and you can be a master as well. It's really a matter of practicing and learning and asking questions and enjoying the ride. Have a great week, rest of the week, friends. Talk to you later.